Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another call here with Numerous Education. Today, we have the second installment of our new series here with Alternative Careers in Sports, and I am delighted to be joined by Jennifer Greene. Jennifer, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Not so bad. Thanks very much for coming on. Anyway, really appreciate it. We
Yes.
we were trying to organize a time to get started. I think there's like a 9 or 10 hours difference between the two of us, so that was probably the biggest struggle.
That was fun to navigate.
I was double checking the time zones the whole time. I was Googling it just to make sure I got the right one.
Yes. And it's not Eastern time, which most people think of with the
Yeah.
US. It's Central time. So getting that was fun.
Yeah, definitely something extra to add into the equation anyway. So how are you keeping anyway? How are you getting on?
Oh, I'm enjoying the job a lot. I'm enjoying life a lot. I kind of just took on a new role or a new title, so that's been exciting to navigate and have a little bit more responsibility in the job. But yeah, it's the summertime, so it's a lot of planning for sports to come in the fall.
Stuff very good. Well, so you're the director of marketing and fan engagement at McNeese University in Louisiana. That's correct, yeah?
Yep, McNeese State University in Lake Charles, Louisiana.
Very good, very good.
Very southern.
Yes, exactly. And I was doing my research, of course, like I have to do. I was on your LinkedIn, and you started off as a marketing intern, and now you're all the way up to a director. So just talk me through how that kind of progressed from there.
For sure. So I actually did my undergrad degree and my master's degree here at McNeese. But basically, I was going through college. I wasn't quite sure what type of career path I wanted to be in. I was in business management when I first started out, and then I added on marketing later, actually. And so I kind of went through that, and I realized I really liked marketing in general. And I was getting to my junior going into senior year, and I was realizing, I didn't really know kind of where I wanted to go with my career after I graduated. And I was talking to my mom about it, and she's like, well, I mean, you've always loved sports. I was like, yeah, you're right, but I don't really know how I can get involved because I don't want to be a coach and I'm not playing in college. So I'm not quite sure how I can get involved. So I actually just reached out to the athletic department here at McNeese. I said, hey, do y'all have any internships maybe in marketing or any way that I can help and learn basically and see if this is a career field that I want to be a part of. And so I reached out, and a woman named Megan Slode was the marketing and ticketing person at the time. And she said, sure, just come in, have a small interview, and we'll kind of see where it goes from there. So I went, I did the interview, which was very informal, but it was kind of my first introduction to sports. So it was nice that it was informal for me. And then long story short, I ended up getting the internship. I did the internship that semester. It was the fall of my senior semester. So going into my last year of undergrad. We started off, my first thing was a sold out football game was the first event I worked. So it was full force. I started late summer and then kind of went into that fall season and worked a football game. I started off as an unpaid intern, and then the graduate assistant at the time actually got a full-time job. So he left a little bit early to go to a full-time job. So then I became a paid intern because, they needed me there. They needed me to help out. So I kind of got more responsibility in that way, just from someone else moving on to something else. Right. So then I go on, I worked the fall, I worked the spring, and then I graduate with my undergrad degree. And in that time, I was again trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. Do I want to move on, try and find a full-time job? Do I want to try and be a graduate assistant for McNeese or for a different school? Or, what do I want to do? And so as the spring was rolling along, I realized, I loved what I was doing here at McNeese. I love that it's a smaller university and I get to have my hands in every sport and, do something with every single sport versus just one. So I asked them, was like, could I apply for the graduate assistantship? And they're like, of course, we'd love to have you. And so I went through that application process and ended up eventually getting the graduate assistantship. So then I started my master's fall of 2020. I graduated spring of 2020. I started my master's fall of 2020. And then became a graduate assistant working under the same boss there. And just kind of with that, you know, as you go up, you get more responsibility. I was able to kind of take on, you know, the smaller sports fully and, you know, help run the script for those and write the scripts for those and talk to the coaches and see what they wanted, you know. And so I did that all through the fall, you know, another football. Well, at McNeese, it was a little bit different because we actually had a big hurricane fall of 2020, and it ruined the entire area. And so we actually didn't have sports fall 2020 because we couldn't, because all of our facilities were ruined. So that was just another thing on top of COVID, right?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, yeah, same here. God.
Yeah, so a little bit different there, but we were still kind of, it was very intriguing because we were trying to figure out how do we still keep McNeese in people's minds while not having sports in the fall and while the whole area is recovering from this hurricane, us included. And so that was interesting. We used a lot of social media there, kind of just our athletes helping clean up houses and clean up, you know, around the area and stuff, and more, you know, humanitarian work, and which was a really cool thing to see our athletes kind of band together and help the community. So that was an unfortunate situation, but it was very cool. Something that we would have never seen otherwise is kind of the whole community band together in that way.
Exactly.
So
it promotes innovation as well in that sense, where that's totally something you're not expecting. You can't plan.
correct.
Exactly. It's cool.
Correct. And then, you know, prior to that, COVID already kind of had to put you in an online mindset in a way, with promoting things because nothing was happening in person. So yeah, even more so there. We had to be careful about how we were going about helping people too because of COVID, but in addition, promoting those things online and just showing that our athletes were there to help the community, and vice versa as well. The community helped us a lot as well here at McNeese. So that was interesting and a learning experience and very humbling too. So then we go into spring 2021, still a graduate assistant, but so very abnormal. We did all of our sports in the spring.
Okay.
So
right.
football was in the spring, basketballs, baseball, softball, volleyball, soccer, all track, all of it was in the spring. And so again, and it was still COVID. So the fan situation was a little bit sparse and it was spring seasons, but we kind of just did as much as we could with what we had. And, you know, some of our facilities were still lacking, but we still, you know, we had a football field, we had a baseball field, and all of that was very surprising, honestly, because it was so short from the hurricanes, but we were able to run everything for the most part on our own facilities. There was a couple sports we had to use a high school gym for volleyball, but other than that, we were able to, you know, use our own facilities. But so I went through my graduate assistantship there and just kind of made, you know, football as big as we could, made basketball as big as we could because we're working out of a different facility, trying to get students to come back and just kind of putting McNeese back on people's mind while still being sensitive of the fact that people are still recovering from the storms. That being said, that whole spring season was free for everyone to come to every event because we wanted to give that back to the community, right? You know, like you're still trying to fix your house, but we want you to come to a McNeese event and just have a good time with your family and not have to worry about paying for it. And so that was another thing that was just really cool to experience, is just people who may otherwise not have come were able to come to those McNeese events then.
And that's
so
not
moving
part of the job description either, you know, that's just adapting to the situations that you have as well. And that's kind of part of life and part of the job as well, something that you're not expecting. So it's great to hear as well.
Correct. It was such a cool experience, and definitely learning opportunities. And like you said, just learning how to adapt and how to best serve your community, right? Because that's what we're here to do. We're here to serve, you know, the student athletes and the fans, and, you know, make it enjoyable for them as well. So then come March 2021, my boss actually got a new job at the Citadel. And so then I was the graduate assistant but I know my boss had already left, so I kind of took on her responsibilities there for that latter part of the spring season. So it was finishing up, well, basketball had just finished, and then it was baseball, softball. So I was kind of the point person for baseball, softball, and beginning to plan for the next year in that time. So once baseball's over, May, June-ish, they start talking about, okay, we're going to do the hiring process for the coordinator of marketing and fan engagement, which was kind of a new position that we separated ticketing and marketing from each other to kind of catch up with what every other school is doing, right? And so I applied for that. I was really nervous because, one of my old bosses at the time told me, there's a lot of qualified people for this position, and whatever happens, just don't be discouraged if you don't get it. And if you do, work hard and show your worth in that. Right. Yeah. And so I go through the interview process. I'm not quite sure how, I did the interview. I thought it went well, but you never know. And so long story short, I did get that position, which I'm so grateful for, and grateful for our athletic director, Heath Schroyer, taking a chance on me, someone new in my first full-time role, and giving me the responsibility to kind of plan everything for every sport and trusting in me to do that, which was huge for me, and, kind of is my first step. And so I officially started that role June 1st, 2021, as the coordinator of marketing and fan engagement. And like I said, because McNeese is a bit of a smaller university, I was the main contact for all sports, and hired a graduate assistant under me who was able to take on, some of the other sports and alleviate some of that pressure, take on maybe soccer, volleyball, and then also be secondary in all the other sports and help me out a lot. And so that was an incredible learning process. I thought I was doing a lot as a graduate assistant, and as anyone who knows that comes from a position like that to full-time, there's so many more things that went on behind the scenes that you didn't know about until you're in that position, right? And so it was awesome for me though at the same time, because I grew as an employee so much during that time, as a professional so much during that time, learning how to word things and make sure that you're communicating well with all of the parties that you have to communicate with. And you learn so much in your first year full time, right? In any position, whether it's sports, whether it's just life. So that was huge for me. And then we went through this past year, 21 and 22, and things went smoothly. There's bumps along the road, but as a whole, it went smoothly. Nothing blew up. I was, it went well, especially being my first year full time. And then so since then, I actually got promoted to director of marketing and fan engagement, which again, I'm still point person for all those sports, but it allows me to have a little more, I guess, autonomy and kind of more trust in making decisions fully on my own. And, I still have to talk to my higher ups. Our deputy AD is my direct report. I still have to talk to him about, money things or stuff like that. But at the end of the day, he and our athletic director trust me, and trust me enough to know that I'll ask the right parties if I need to ask them, and I'll make the right decisions if I need to make them. And so it's been very humbling and very exciting. And I'm honored, that they saw something in me that made them want to give me that position change. So long story, but definitely some abnormal twists and turns along the way.
Definitely, yeah. No, it's brilliant to hear, the progression. It's nearly like you did a graduate program at your own university, and it was something that kind of interests me when I was looking at your background. Like, a lot of people coming out of university might not be sure what they want to do, and I think that's quite normal. And even, if you look at your own university, that there are opportunities within it, if you are interested in certain areas of the work that they do. And it was great to see someone like yourself who had done the bachelor, done the master in the same university, and then carry on and into a really successful career so far. So it's just brilliant to see. How did you it was interesting that the point that you brought up when you kind of started the work that you were doing during your final year bachelor. How did you kind of find balancing that with the academic workload as well?
Definitely. Well, basically, I kind of knew whenever I first started in the internship, I was like, I'll learn two things from this. One of two things from this. I'll either learn that I really enjoy sports and I want to make a career out of it, or I'll learn that I don't really like it. And then that'll still give me a path, right? It'll just give me a different path and I'll have to figure out what I want to do. And so I went into it with a very open mind from the get-go. I was like, I'm just going to do as well as I can in this internship and try and learn as much as I can and just absorb information, because I know, I was a marketing intern, but I also knew there's so many other areas of sports that you can work in too. So I wanted to learn those things as well. But anyway, so I basically came in and I was like, though I'm in this internship, I also am still a student, right? And I need to prioritize my schoolwork too, because at the end of the day, if I slack off on this and I fail these classes and stuff and I'm not in school, then I can't do this internship anyways. And so basically what I did is I still had classes that I had to go to, and I would go to my classes in person. And then right whenever I was done for the day, which often for me, I had the latter part of the afternoon free, I would come into the office and then I would just kind of sit, observe, get some tasks from my boss at the time, what I could, during a normal week versus just on a game day, which helped me a lot, because game days in a normal week are a lot different in an athletic department. Game day is exciting and, you're running around all over, but sometimes in the office, it seems boring, but you're doing these things that prepare for that game day and all these like small, sometimes tedious tasks, that you're doing to prepare for game day. But basically, I did all my school stuff, my school classes first, and then I would come into the office. And then those days that we didn't have, a volleyball match or a soccer match or a football game, those evenings, I would take that time, to get my homework done, to do my essays and stuff, to make sure, our papers are due on Sundays most often, but our football games are on Saturdays. So it's like, okay, I'm going to make sure this paper is done Friday, so I'm not worried about it after this football game. And so I can, have my full mind there to learn and to help as an intern at those football games.
Yeah, definitely. And I suppose it comes down to time management as well, and kind of having a bit of a plan forward of what you can do, just like you mentioned there. So it's great to see that you're able to kind of do that throughout your studies. And then now it's definitely probably helping you within your work at the minute as a director.
Definitely. School and work translate into each other so well if you learn those time management skills early on in your college career, even if you're not in sports, even if you're, you just have a regular job, even if you don't have a job and your only focus is school, starting off even that freshman year, making a plan of, I'm going to do schoolwork, during these times to make sure I have it done so many days ahead or whatever. The earlier you get those skills and those time management skills, the better it is for the rest of your college career, and then also for your professional career, because once you get full time, you have a meeting here or an interview here, but you also have all your paperwork you may have to do, or all your planning you have to do, and having an organized way of putting that all together is vital.
Definitely. And I suppose I was going to ask you kind of what your day-to-day looks like, or what you kind of do throughout the day, but I don't know what position to start off at. I suppose at your director role now, we'll kind of stick with that. I'm sure it changes quite a bit, but what's kind of like an average week for you, maybe mid-season, throughout your work?
Perfect. Yeah. So I'll just kind of go through, let's say, a football game week, right? I'll start here though. The summer is just a lot of planning, right? Getting together all the marketing plans for our fall sports. We have a military appreciation game for football. So we're talking about, okay, let's talk to the local military base about getting a color guard there. Let's talk to the Air Force about getting a flyover. Like, those are kind of summer tasks, is the big picture, way ahead types of things that you have to plan with auxiliary parties. But a game week for football, right? So it's basically, I have scripts, and the scripts go through everything that's in a game day, from gates opening to music starting to football team comes on the field to warm up. And then when we get to the real thing, right, like the football team runs out, the visiting team runs out, we play this song at this time. There's a PA read for the coin toss because it's Oshner Christus coin toss. All of those types of things are laid out in the script. The first time out is game sponsor recognition. The second time out is Coke kick, whatever it may be, you know, all laying that out. So the week prior to a football game week and the first couple of days of that week is finalizing that script, you know, checking with my sponsorship team. Are all these PA reads correct? Do I have every single sponsor, you know, so-and-so needs it 3 times, so-and-so it gets read twice. Do I have the commercials loaded up into the video board? And then if it's a special game, like I said, like military appreciation, following back up with those people saying, you know, hey, this military base, or you're still good to be there on Saturday morning at this time to practice. And then you'll walk out at this time right before the game. Coordinating with basically every single part of a game day and just making sure all of the people that aren't internal are ready for their side, and making sure that I have all of their things fulfilled on my side. So that's kind of the script thing. And then we'll have a meeting with all of the internal / campus people, which would include, you know, me, our game operations, our facilities people, our sponsorship people, but it would also include our band, our dance team, the Cowgirl Kickers, and our cheerleaders. The point people for those, it would include our campus police department. It would include our campus, you know, student services type people. And in those, we talk about our internal stuff, right? Okay, the Cowgirl Kickers, our dance team, you're gonna come out with the band at this time and cheer. Make sure you make a tunnel for the team so that way they can run through you. Things like that kind of go on in that meeting. And say it's a preview day, which is, you know, whenever incoming students come to the university and look at the university and see if this is where they want to come. I would get with our student services team or our enrollment team, say, okay, they're all going to have a wristband to come in for free. So we make sure our ticketing people know there's a wristband coming with 100 students or whatever it may be, for free. And so that's another part of game week, is just coordinating with those campus side and making sure that's all good. And then of course we have setup, right, which could be any day in the week, could be game day, and it's just making sure our DJ tent is set up and making sure, checking the video board and the sound several times because electronics fail, and we don't want them to fail on game day. So it's just, you know, double, triple, quadruple checking those electronic pieces. And sometimes it still messes up on a game day right before, and then you just have to troubleshoot that on the spot. But getting that all in order. And then for me is talking with my graduate assistant about what their responsibilities are going to be on that specific game day. And then any interns that I may have that came from the school that have been helping me that semester. It's just making sure that, you know, we may be rolling t-shirts for students to make sure we give them out to them at the student gate, or we give them to the cheerleaders to throw or shoot in the t-shirt cannon. So it's just, you know, a lot of following up with people from what we have talked about prior. Some we may have talked about in the summer, some may have been a month out. We have a big meeting that we talk about everything football. So the week of is just a lot of following up with everyone, making sure all of our plans are still in line, so that way it can be as smooth as possible on that actual game day.
Very good. Yeah, there's a lot of things that go into it that you might not think straight off the bat. Like you name some of those things. It's like, yeah, you wouldn't even think that needs to be organized. It just happens. And even down to the whole calling out the sponsorship and the commercial side of it as well. You know, stuff that if you're at the match, you might not even notice, but you know, this is something that needs to be organized as well.
Correct.
Just one point, when you mentioned about the meetings that you would have had as well, are they like really brainstorming meetings where, you know, there's a lot of ideas coming out about what we could do for this game or what we could do, or is it quite set in terms of a schedule or kind of like a routine for each game?
Yeah, so some things are able to be switched around, but a lot of it is based on the coach and the team, because, you know, if certain player, basically it goes based on the pregame schedule of the team. So a certain part of the team, like offense, may come out at this time and defense may come out at this time. So we kind of coordinate with the coach or the director of football operations and say, okay, what time is the team actually running out full pads ready for the game? Okay, this may be 15 minutes or 20 minutes before the game or something. And then we have to make sure we coordinate, okay, band goes before that. And I think it's actually more like 10 minutes before the game, but band goes before that. We have to make sure band is completely off, before the team runs in, or the band is set in their tunnel before the team runs in. And it's a lot of down to the second moments that we have to script out, but it's not always set in stone. It's kind of just a range, right? Typically the team will come out from this range to this range. Coach, what time are you thinking that your team will come out? And then band, what your set is typically, your pregame set is typically 7 minutes, or is it 5 minutes? And then we kind of get their time, and then we coordinate based on coach time. So in those meetings, we're able to kind of fine tune all of those, very minuscule details about, okay, the band knows the exact time of their set. It's 7 minutes and 29 seconds. So then we can plan that. And then our creative side, he makes an introduction video that the team kind of runs out to. So, we need that video. Basically, we'll go through pregame. We'll say we have about a minute and 20 seconds slot here that you can make your video, or maybe it's just 45 seconds. Right. So a lot of those meetings, it's not really set in stone, but it's kind of set within a range, and then we work within that range specifically.
Very good, very good. And just kind of one thing you mentioned as well, I think earlier, about having your graduate assistant and having your marketing intern. Do you kind of see yourself in those people as well in a way, or do you kind of, like, is it weird thinking, like, I was in that position? I don't know if they have the same motivation that I had when I was there. And how does that kind of feel, I suppose, being in the role that you're in now and looking back at kind of bringing people on board in the role that you would have been in a couple of years ago?
Definitely. It is interesting because it wasn't quite that long ago that I was in those roles. And so I'm not far removed from it. So I know what it was like to be an intern and come into a new space, and kind of feel sometimes like, I don't know what I'm doing yet. I don't know these people yet. And just kind of being put in head first and trying to learn your way around a new office, just like it is if you come in even full-time into a new space. It's always a learning curve, and getting to know the people and how they interact with each other. So I try my best to, with any interns and with graduate assistants, is to, from the get-go, explain the environment of our office, which is very family-like, really. We all get along very well, and we communicate with each other very well. If we need operations to do something, or we need sponsorships to do something, we talk about that right away, so that way we can all get our own jobs done. But I explained to them, even in the interview process, we're a family here. We all get along. We all hang out. Like we go out to eat sometimes in the evenings, because we actually like each other outside of work too. Even though we're with each other constantly, we actually like each other. And I think that's a huge key in sports too, right? Because your hours are so crazy sometimes. If you don't like the people you're working with, you're going to be miserable. And so that's something that we look for, even just in the interview process. Oh, this person seems like they get along here, and we explain to them, we get along, we talk about life, we hang out outside of work if we're available. And so the people that we bring on know these things ahead of time, so they know what they're getting into, and they're not kind of sideswiped or anything about what they're getting into when they come in. But yeah, I definitely try to make it as welcoming of an environment as possible. And I try to explain things, hey, I need you to edit this marketing plan, and here's why, because as an intern and a graduate assistant, I had a lot of why questions, and what exactly is this, and what is the purpose of this, because I was so new. And so I never try to assume that people know things just because they may have worked in sports before. I always try to kind of over explain, which some people may like, some people may not, but just so that way No one ever feels like their question is dumb or anything like that, because I would never want that. I want it to be welcoming and open to where, if they have a question that they feel they should know, they feel comfortable asking me anyways. And I never make them feel like, well, why don't you know this? So.
No, it's a great leadership trait to have, where you kind of recognize the position that you were in, and then what would I have liked when I was in that position, and then you're able to kind of do it as well. So it's great. Just kind of thinking back on the years that you've kind of been working there, what's the kind of most fun event that you've had, or the biggest event that you've been the most proud of, I suppose, at the end of it?
Yeah. I'll talk about a few. I'll talk about some that I kind of worked as an intern and graduate assistant where I didn't necessarily plan it, and then a couple where I planned it. So like I said, when I was an intern, the first game I worked was a sold out game. It was McNeese versus Southern University, which is HBCU in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And that game was massive. There was 20,000 people in the stadium, just over that, standing room only. It was wild, but it made me excited because I was able to, I don't know, I like the adrenaline rush of kind of like a busy day and an exciting, because when you have that many fans in the stadium, even though it's a little stressful at times, like you're seeing this, and it kind of gives you chills that you're seeing, something so big and something that you're a part of. You've helped plan, you've helped make this happen, and then like you're getting to put on this show for the fans, right? And so I was helping in the ticket office, when the phones got really busy, I was helping them answer phones sometimes. And then we were running to the field to make sure everything was good to go. And it was just the first big thing working in sports. And I was like, wow, like I love this. So that was a huge moment for me. And of course, all the games weren't sold out, but they were all still just as exciting and fun. And I felt like I was a part of something bigger, kind of. And then the other thing, kind of as a GA and graduate assistant, is we opened up the Legacy Center. At the time, it was called the Health and Human Performance Arena, but since then we've sold it. But it was the Health and Human Performance Arena, and it is a big, beautiful basketball and volleyball facility on our campus. And we opened that up, and it was a $42 million project. So you can imagine it's incredible. And so it was cool to see students, sold out and excited about a basketball season coming and in this brand new facility. It was cool to see fans excited about this new facility. And again, being a small part of that. And, hey, like at that time, I think I may have been helping at the student gate a little bit and giving out those t-shirts or whatever and saying, welcome to, at the time, Health and Human Performance Arena. And seeing that student section filled and seeing them so excited about a basketball season. So I was lucky that my first kind of introductions to these things was like big, exciting things. And then, in the roles that I had more responsibility, something that was really cool that we started last year was cowboy block parties, which were Friday night concerts before our football games. And so last year we had that for the first time ever. However, our football games were at noon, actually, because we didn't have lights from the storm. So we're still recovering from the storm. So we didn't have the big LED lights yet. And so we had to have noon games. So we started those block parties to kind of create something exciting, leading up to that noon football game, because it's hot and we know it'll affect attendance some, but we wanted to give fans something, and it's free, something that they can come to in the night and not be too hot, and then it leads into that football game. And so that was really cool to see, and it was fun, and students enjoyed it, and the regular population of Lake Charles enjoyed it as well. So that was cool to be a part of. And then two other things that I directly kind of planned that I was proud of and excited about was we had an event called McNeese Mayhem. It's for basketball season, and it's kind of like a midnight madness in bigger schools. But we call our student section for basketball the Mayhem, which started with men's basketball, but we have since kind of made it an entire thing. So we called it McNeese Mayhem. And at the time, the Legacy Center, which it is now named, our basketball arena, wasn't open yet because it had to be repaired from the hurricanes. And so we actually had to have this event in our recreation complex on campus, which is a little bit of an older building, but it still, you know, functions perfectly, fits people. But anyways, it was a fun event where we heavily promoted to students, but it was open to the public as well. And we had student games on the court. We had a DJ there. We had an MC there. The men's basketball team did a scrimmage where they just, you know, dunked a lot to get people excited. We gave away AirPods, Fire Sticks, like it was just this big thing. And that was exciting for me to see because we had, I believe it was 300 or so students there, which is very good for an event at the recreation complex. And I was proud of that because we pulled that. We did that organically. We planned this event organically. And we brought these students in and they had a great time. And that set up kind of anticipation for the rest of that basketball season, which in January we reopened the Legacy Center, good to go, ready to run out of, which was another exciting, you know, not often do you get to open a brand new fancy facility twice. And we were able to do that twice because of the storms. But, you know, it was cool to have another kind of like a grand reopening of the Legacy Center. And it was a new name. So it kind of felt, you know, fresh and new. And then the other thing, which we've done in the past, is a crawfish night. So crawfish, little lobsters that are very staple in Louisiana, I guess. And we always did a crawfish night at baseball and softball. In years past, I remember it as a student, I would go, I'd get my free crawfish and I loved it. We did at baseball this year, and I was talking, it's the same restaurant that does it every year. And so I was talking to the guy and he kind of knew. He's like, you know, we need so many pounds, like 300, 400 pounds of crawfish. It should be fine. We've never run out before. We'll be good. And I was like, okay, sure. You know, you've done it before. I trust that you know. And so we get there and it is like hundreds of students there and the line is massive. And I was like, oh my goodness, like I was worried the turnout wasn't going to be good. I was like, we've promoted a lot, but students, COVID and everything, people don't come out to things as much. It's hard to get them there. And anyways, and so promoted it and there were hundreds of students there and they had to go get more crawfish and bring it because they ran out. And he was like, this is the first time in all the years we've done it that we've ever run out of crawfish. And so that made me feel good because, you know, the fact that we were able to promote well to students, even though some of them weren't even on campus because, you know, COVID and everything. It was very exciting to see something, you know, full form and have a great turnout for students and something that they'll, you know, hopefully remember for next year when we do it again and then come out even more, you know, the following year. And it kind of becomes a word of mouth type of thing. So yeah, that's a couple things. And then this year we actually do have lights at football. So we'll have those cowboy block parties again on Friday, but we'll have night games again at football. So that's super exciting. We're excited to kind of get back to the roots of the traditions here at McNeese with night football games and a full tailgate experience.
Definitely. No, it sounds great. And I suppose, you know, listening to the events that you kind of rattled off there, you know, when you're a student, you might not actually think of the work that goes in behind those things. It's like, oh, there's another event coming this Friday or whatever. I might go, I might not go. And then when you're actually on the other side of it, you know, you have so many logistics and operations side of it that you don't really think of. So it's nice to kind of get an insight from your own perspective about, you know, trialing the lights or the audio 4 or 5 times to make sure that it goes right. And then if it goes wrong, someone's like, sure, they never even checked the lights or the audio, like, you know, but no, it's nice to kind of hear that. I just have one kind of question or kind of observation, just linking it back to what we do with a numerous as well. So at the minute, we're kind of focusing on the student athlete perspective, and we are focusing on kind of the soccer side of things. We recently got one of our students into Bryant University on the East Coast. And I was just kind of wondering from your perspective, from the marketing side of things and kind of engagement of students and the sporting sides, of the international students that might be coming over to play in some of the teams, or students that might not necessarily be from the local area or be from America, is there stuff that you kind of do to integrate the players or to integrate them into the whole McNeese kind of university or the kind of community involvement within that as well?
Yeah, definitely. So the really cool thing about here specifically, I'll talk about a little, is just that we in Lake Charles, not only in McNeese athletics, like I said, we're a family, but the Lake Charles community is very family based. So it is so cool for me just to observe when new student athletes come in, the community kind of just wraps their arms around them, and they want to know who they are and where they're from. They want to know if you're Niall from Ireland, and what did you do in Ireland and how is it different than Lake Charles? And so that here is really cool. And I would imagine it's the same in a lot of places because, you know, even big schools, you know, they have their community base and the people that pour into those programs and the people that are fans of those programs, and they know the student athletes, and they know, you know, what high school they played in and what their points were in high school and what they excel at when they come in. And so it's really cool on an outside perspective, seeing, you know, they follow it on social media whenever we say, you know, we signed this new track athlete from Africa, this distance runner, or whatever it may be, and they see them come in and they're saying, hey, I saw your name on social media, I saw that you're from here, you know, what is it like to be in the United States? And, you know, these people just kind of wrap their arms around the student athletes. And then in addition, internally, the people who are with them every day, right? Yeah. We athletic staff deals with, you know, international student athletes constantly, and they know exactly kind of, okay, I have a lot of athletes from Ireland or from whatever country, and I've noticed that when athletes from this country come here, they struggle with blank area because they're used to whatever it may be from their specific country. And that's also really cool, right? Because they get to tailor things to specific athletes from specific countries and say, you know, I've realized that these athletes kind of need help, you know, adapting to the culture in this way, and they're able to kind of cultivate that, or at least explain, you know, why this is this way in the United States, and how to navigate that, so that way they're not caught off guard when coming in. And then just being open to answer questions, right? Like our academic people are amazing and are with the athletes, you know, all day, every day. They're talking to them before they get here because they have to get them enrolled to classes. And so it's, you know, hey, like, I know math there may be a little bit different, or, you know, your English isn't your first language, but you may have to take this English course or whatever it may be. And kind of just being that point person to introduce them to professors and say, hey, this is, you know, so-and-so, and they're from here, and, you know, they're looking forward to your class. What are some things that they need to know about your class, right? And just kind of having people within the department that can connect you with other people within the campus side, within the community, really makes you feel at home in a university. And, you know, there's always going to be learning curves. There's always going to be a little bit of bumps around the road, missing family and stuff. But the best thing I think about, you know, moving to a different country for school when you're an athlete is you already get that sense of family first with your team, right? I think you're going to have however many people are on your team, 10, 30, 50, 100 people on your team that's your family, you know, and that can answer those questions and can help you out and can teach you how to grow and to learn about your community. And then in addition, you have your coaches, you have all of the support staff that their job is to make student athletes' lives, you know, a little bit easier because you're practicing all the time. It's difficult to navigate school. And so I think the biggest thing is just actually using those resources that you do have, because they're at every student's disposal, but they're also really at student athletes' disposal, and grabbing onto those things like your academic staff or your athletic training staff. Athletic trainers can help with the mental side of things as well. Your coaches, your teammates, and just not being afraid to ask those questions and ask for help if you need it.
Exactly. No, that's brilliant. I think you've summarized it perfectly there, and you can tell just from the way you speak the kind of community aspect that comes with McNeese as well, and the work that you do. So it's great to hear. And obviously it's great to hear yourself how passionate you are about the job that you're in and the industry that you're working in as well. And you know, the worst thing I suppose for a student athlete is something that's if people that are kind of in charge of it aren't really enjoying it, I suppose. But when you really are, it makes a huge difference to everyone involved. So you can definitely tell that. Look, I think we'll wrap it up there, Jennifer. Really appreciate the time that you took to do the call with me today. And I think it was great just to get an insight into, I suppose, American sports in a way, and everyone kind of hears about the college life and the college sport, and the guns being put out of a t-shirt is not really a European thing. That's very European or American thing. So it's nice to hear about that stuff as well. But yeah, no, I really appreciate it, and wish you all the best now for the coming season.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me. I've enjoyed talking about this and kind of getting to get a little bit of an insight into McNeese and Louisiana and just, the US and sports in general.
Exactly. That's great. Thanks very much.
No problem.